What shall we do with the drunken sailor? What shall we do with the drunken sailor? What shall we do with the drunken sailor early in the morning?
Ever thought of marrying a seal? Whether you have or haven't, I think you will enjoy today's traditional folktale. All the way from the north of Scotland, the Orkney Isles and Shetland, the Selkie Bride. Hello good people, welcome back, or welcome if you're here for the first time. If you are into fairy tales, folk tales, mythology and all kinds of literature like me, maybe you'd like to subscribe to my channel down below and ring the notification bell if you don't want to miss anything. I attempt to upload a video every week, Friday, Saturday-ish, and we talk about stories and their potential meaning for our lives and our world. It's hot. I know a lot of you are watching from the northern hemisphere, in which case I envy you. I suddenly remembered this story last week while I was on holiday at the beach. I got somewhat of a tan, some freckles, lots of walks and swims at dawn, spooked some drunk teenagers. There is still sand in my tripod. I also came back with a seashell, actually a ton of seashells. If you go to the beach and don't collect at least one seashell, I do not trust you. I also came back with this story, rekindled in my memory by the wild waves and the sea breeze. Enjoy. In the lonely, cold lands of the north, where land meets ocean in an ever-cresting knife's edge, there lived a man named Neil MacCudrum. He was a fisherman, as were all men in his village, being the land low and good only for cattle, and the ocean both wild and generous. But unlike the other men who had wives and children to come home to, Neil MacCudrum lived all alone in his stone house overlooking the ocean. Only the song of the wind kept him company, and the far, high cries of birds. And in the long winter nights, when the fire lit up his blue eyes and the storms raged around the house, he mended his nets and looked into the distance as if to discover the secrets of a faraway land. After a particularly harsh winter, on a cool spring evening, the men of the village were bringing the boats full of herring to shore. They swung homeward with glad hearts, their wives lit the lights, and the wide world narrowed down to a warm, welcoming room. Neil MacCudrum, who had none of these things, was the last to bring his boat to shore. He stood a while watching the seabirds fly back and forth over the shingles, their wings dark against the evening sky, and then turned to trudge all the way up to his little stone house. But just as he turned to go, he glimpsed something bright in the shadows, shining white, and then high, clear laughter. He approached cautiously. Behind the great boulders he saw them, 7 dancing girls with hair long and dark as the dusk, and no clothes on them. They were dancing right where the waves met the beach. He knew it then. They were the Selkie folk, who are seals when they are in the sea, but can become human by shedding their skins. Their skins! They were right beside him. Curious, he took one in his hands. It was the softest thing he'd ever touched. But even as he grabbed it, 7 alarmed faces turned towards him, and after an instant of frozen silence, each clutched their sealskin and dove back into the ocean. All except for one. The 7th Selkie woman stood in front of Neil MacCudrum, long, dusky hair covering her, and her eyes dark and wide. "Give it back, please, I ask you, fisherman. You have no use for my skin." But then Neil MacCudrum looked at her. He saw her beauty and heard the tumble of her voice, full of the faraway ocean sounds, and he didn't have the heart to let her leave. "Come with me," he said. "I will give you new clothes to wear. And so, after a month or two, Neil MacCudrum and the Selkie woman married. He made her laugh, and she sang to him in the long evenings, but more often than not, she sat quietly beside him and seemed to be listening to another music that was lost in the distance. After a while, she bore him 2 children who had the bright blonde hair of their father but the great dark eyes of their mother. And there were little webs between their fingers and their toes. Just checking. Each day, while Neil was out on his boat, the Selkie woman and their children would wander and gather wild berries or even seaweed at low tide. She seemed settled enough in their little stone house, and in the spring, when the air was sweet with the smell of herbs and their children brought her wildflowers, she was truly happy. Almost. When the west wind came bringing rain, and strong gusts of the tempest whistled through the cracks in the stone, she grew restless and moved about the house as if swaying to an invisible tide. And when she sat at the spinning wheel, she would hum a strange song in a different language as the thread flowed through her fingers. Neil MacCudrum hated these times and would sit in the darkest corner smoking his pipe, but was unable to say a word. 13 summers passed in this manner since the Selkie wed Neil MacCudrum, and her children were now almost grown. As she knelt in the warm earth one evening, looking for roots to cook for dinner, the voice of her daughter rang across the salty air. Soon the girl was right beside her, holding something in her hands. "Look, mother, is this not the strangest thing that I have found in the old barley chest? Softer than the mist itself." The Selkie woman rose slowly to her feet and in silence ran her hand along the speckled brown skin. It was soft as silk, just as she remembered. She held it to her heart, she hugged her daughter and walked in silence back to the house. Then she called her son also and spoke gently. "My children," she said, "I will soon be leaving you, my dears, and you will never see me again in the shape that I wear now. But it is not because I do not love you. I go now because I must become myself." That night, as the round moon sailed white as a pearl above the western seas, the Selkie woman rose, leaving the comfort and warmth of her bed and her sleeping husband. She walked alone to the silent shore, took off her clothes, letting them fall on the sand, one by one. She then stepped lightly over the rocks and rolled the small brown parcel and held it up in front of her face. For one moment, maybe, she hesitated, her head turning back to the dark, to her sleeping children in the house, but it was just one instant. The next, she had wrapped herself in the shining skin and dropped into the singing water of the sea. For a while, a sleek brown head could be seen among the swaying waves, pointing ever towards the dark horizon. And then, swift towards her, came 6 others. The other seals formed a circle around her, and then all were lost in the embrace of night. In the stone house by the shore, Neil MacCudrum woke, felt for his wife, but his hand found only a cold and empty hollow. He knew immediately what had happened, what had to happen, and he also knew that he would never see his wife again. But still, when the moon is young and the tide is growing, the Selkie's children do not sleep. They run down to the sands on silent, webbed feet, and there, by the rocks on the shoreline, they wait until she comes, a small brown seal with great dark eyes, and they swim with her till morning. I love this story. It reminds me of the wildness of the world, of other people, and even of myself. It also reminds me of a time when I was in a relationship that was controlling, emotionally abusive. I felt that I owed my partner love and attachment. Everyone around us expected us to get married. So after I tried to assert my independence within the relationship, we broke up. And I thought that I was never going to find anyone to love me ever again. That was the first day. The second day, when I woke up, I felt alive again. I felt free to become myself again, to listen to whatever music I liked, talk to whoever I liked. This only lasted for about 2 years. After 13 years, I imagine the Selkie wife must have felt a similar way. I think this story reminds us the thing that we should value the most is our freedom. Sometimes we are in situations where it is slowly taken away from us and we don't realize. And it's not our fault. It's also encouraging us to, as soon as we get the opportunity to get back our wild skins, take that chance and jump back into the ocean of our freedom. This tale is also giving us a gentle reminder that we never own other people or things or situations, that the world and its chances are simply beyond our grasp and control. When we try to force something, be it a romantic relationship, a friendship, a goal or dream, or even our inspiration for art, when we force it, chances are that it will slip away. I include myself in this, obviously, need to understand that something or someone can be wonderful and still not ours to take, be it land, a person, a thing. So what do you think of the story? Have you been in a similar situation or relationship before? Or maybe you tried to force something and it didn't work out, or maybe it did work out. Prove me wrong. Tell me in the comments. I look forward to chatting about this. If you liked the video, don't forget to click the like button and subscribe. And maybe you want to check out this other story video next. See you next Friday, Saturday, whenever I can upload a thing. Not seawater, I promise. Look, mother! Subscribe.